Hello everyone, I'm Ana de los Reyes, your first presenter for this topic. It's all about research in child and adolescent development. Principles of research. There are two. First, teachers and consumers or end users of research. It gives important knowledge to use in policy making. It also enables teachers on what to teach and how to teach. And also, it involves decisions related to educational policies, curriculum, effective learning and teaching process, and even those involving research. And according to Albert Yorgi, research is to see what everybody else has seen and to think what nobody else has thought. Next, teachers as researcher. Research does not only belong to thesis and dissertation. It is for students and teachers too. So overall, teachers can be both consumers or end user of research and also as researchers. Since we've all tackled about research, it is necessary to talk about scientific method. One important principle of research is adherence to the scientific method, since research is a systematic and logical process. And according to John Dewey, there are 5 steps in scientific method. To begin with, identify and define the problem. The very basic one, and I know we're all familiar with this. After you define your problem and you have the problem, proceed to determine the hypothesis or your indicated yes of the problem. And after that, you may proceed to collect and analyze your data by testing your indicated guess, by collecting it and analyzing it. Then after that, you may proceed to formulate conclusions, then apply conclusions to the original hypothesis to find out if your original hypothesis is correct or not. Let's proceed for our next topic that's all about research design. Research design. Researches that are done with high level of quality and integrity provide us with valuable information about child and adolescent development. And one of the functions of research design is to ensure that the evidence obtained enables you to effectively address the researcher's problem as clearly as possible. That's why it is important that you know various research design and different data gathering, which we tackle it later after this research design. That is all about data gathering used by developmental researches. In doing research, we have different designs to do, where in fact there are some kinds of research design that we're going to discuss with a total of 8 design. And in this research design, we're going to describe them and give some brief description, strength, and their brief weaknesses. Case study. An in-depth look at an individual. It is more on particular research problem rather than statistical survey. It was more on very personal because it provides information about an individual's hopes, fear, upbringing, at anything na traumatic experience about your family, the health, fantasies, fears, anything about individuals. But in weakness, since it only focuses on one individual, it might not be true to other people. I know that we've encountered case study. So that's all about for the case study. Let's proceed to Correlational study. Correlational study, a research design that determines association. It is useful because the more strongly two events are correlated, the more we can predict one from the other. It is more on a qualitative study, so it is useful as for strength, useful for two events that are correlated. This is the type of study that is non-experimental research, in which a researcher measures two variables, looking for variables that seem to interact with each other. When you see one variable changing, you pair idea how the other variable will change. So kung correlated ba sila? So from the word itself, correlational, correlated if kung the more related they are, the more many effects sa isa't isa. So something like that, any correlational study. And for weakness, not involve the manipulation of factors. It is not a dependable way to isolate cause. Then, let's proceed to experimental study. It determines the cause and effect of relationships. It provides highest level of evidence for single study and the most common research that we know. It enables the researcher to maintain control over all factors that may affect the result of an experiment. As for strength, the true reliable method of establishing cause and effect, for example, for the experimental, I know na common na siya for us. For example, if you really want if there cause and effects between the sunlight and the plant, if naabay effect and growth sa plant sa sunlight. So, more an experiment siya nga similar siya sa correlational, pero ang correlational that's not touch any experiment. Ang correlational is quality lang siya. Ang experimental more on quantity jud siya, remember that. As for weakness, experimental research is limited to what is observable, testable, and manipulable. So we're done of experimental, and now let's proceed of natural observation. Naturalistic observation, a research design that focuses on children's experiences in natural settings. So naturalistic observation, natural setting, imo siyang ginaobserbahan, for example sa classroom, na you want to observe your students, how they react or how they interact with other students, on how to behave inside the classroom and outside the classroom. Something like that nga wala kabalo imong mga students nga imo silang ginaobserbahan. So kung ang correlational is quality, ang experimental is more on quantity, ang naturalistic observation was more on narrative report. And as for strength, a researcher is that it allows the researcher to directly observe the subject in a natural setting. So it involves recording, counting, describing, and categorize the actions and events. There is no influence coming from the researcher. There is no experimentation because the researcher or the teacher here is observing a natural setting. However, the disadvantage of naturalistic observation include the fact that it can be difficult to determine the exact cause of behavior and the experimenter cannot control outside variables. Then, moving forward for the longitudinal research design. So longitudinal, this research design studies and follows through a single group over a period of time. From the word itself, long. So very long process siya na study. For example, if you want to study the tribes of that specific country, na about sa ilang lifestyle, language, and to be able to make that study, you should to be there so very long process jud siya. And as for strengths, allow them to record and monitor development trends. And as for weakness, these designs are expensive and time consuming. Yes, but still it is worth it. If you want this longitudinal, why not? So much for longitudinal. Let's proceed to cross-sectional study. Cross-sectional research. A research strategy in which individuals of different ages are compared at one time. Strength allows them to record and monitor developmental trends. Weaknesses. It gives no information about individuals' change or about the stability of their characteristics. Next, sequential. Sequential. This is the combined cross-sectional and longitudinal approaches to learn about lifespan development. In combination, siya in terms of cross-sectional because as mentioned earlier, cross-sectional compared people from different ages at one time. So it was also the same sequential pero mas strong ang sequential. Why? Because it does follow sequence. So for example, it was discussed in module 3 or 2 the stages of development wherein nag-start siya sa prenatal period, infancy, early childhood, early adulthood, middle adulthood, and late up adulthood. So, it's more on sequences. So, cross-sectional siya tungod kay nag-follow siya og ages but not following the sequential kadtong nasa stages of development. So, maong related silang duha. And as for longitudinal approaches, longitudinal siya kay since you follow the stages development, kay kailangan man siya isunod-sunod so very long process jud siya. That's why longitudinal approaches naa siya for the progress of sa bata or anything nga unsay nakatouch sa imuhang study. As for strengths, it provides information to obtain from cross-sectional or longitudinal approaches. And weaknesses, it is complex, expensive, and time-consuming. Action research. Action research is a reflective process of progressive problem solving led by individuals working with others in teams or as a part of a community of practice to improve the way they address issues and solve problems. Strength. Appropriate in a particular setting when the purpose of study is to create changes and gain information on processes and outcome of the strategies used. Weaknesses typically take place in one organization only at a particular time and could not be interpreted within different organizations in the same way. Therefore, research findings are hard to generalize.